October 14, 2021, 6:27 p.m. Carson's Market was busy that evening. The sound of carts rattling, cash registers beeping, and kids tugging at their parents filled the store. People were tired from a long day, ready to get home. It felt like any other Thursday night in town. Until it happened. A woman, standing quietly in line with just a few groceries, suddenly became the center of attention. She wasn't loud, she wasn't causing trouble. She was just there. Worn-out cardigan, simple jeans, hair pulled back like she hadn't had much time for herself. She looked like someone you'd pass on the street without a second thought. But in that line, all eyes seemed to shift toward her. It started with a small laugh. Then a comment from the cashier that wasn't meant to be kind. A few words that cut deep, the kind of words that make the heart beat faster, make your face warm in an instant. The store, full of its usual noise, suddenly felt heavier. Customers shifted their weight, pretending not to listen, but they did. Everyone did. The woman froze. Her knuckles whitened around the basket she was holding. She kept her head down, as if staring at the floor could shield her from what was happening. The seconds dragged, each one sharper than the last. Shame has a way of filling a room quickly, and that night, it spread faster than anyone could stop it. What nobody standing there realized was that this ordinary-looking woman carried an extraordinary story. A story that, by the end of that week, would change the way people in this town thought about kindness, respect, and what it truly means to see someone for who they are. Her name was Claire. 38 years old, raising her daughter on her own in a modest apartment on the edge of town. By day, she worked long shifts at a local laundry service, folding other people's clothes until her hands were raw and her back ached. By night, she hurried home, making simple dinners, helping with homework, and listening to her daughter's stories until both of them drifted off to sleep on the same worn-out couch. Claire wasn't someone who stood out. She wasn't dressed in the latest trends, and she never cared to be. Most mornings, she grabbed whatever was clean and comfortable, tied her hair back, and went on with her day. There was no vanity in her routine, her life didn't leave much room for it. What she carried instead was a quiet strength, the kind that isn't announced but felt in the way she showed up, day after day, for the people who depended on her. She was soft-spoken, the kind of woman who smiled politely at strangers but rarely drew attention. In fact, if you'd passed her on the street, you might not remember her at all. Yet beneath the surface of her simple appearance was a woman holding together more than most people could imagine. Her clothes, her tired shoes, her messy bun, none of it told the story of who she truly was. And on that evening at Carson's Market, when all eyes seemed fixed on her, none of those people knew the weight she carried or the choices she had made that shaped the quiet life they were so quick to judge. The moment should have been simple. A few groceries scanned, a receipt handed over, and she'd be on her way. Instead, the cashier leaned closer to another worker and muttered something that wasn't meant for her ears. The words slipped through the hum of the register, clear enough to sting. Why would anyone come out dressed like that? It wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. Claire heard it. So did the man waiting behind her, shifting awkwardly, pretending not to notice. In an instant, her chest tightened, heat rushed to her face, and her grip on the basket turned rigid. She wanted to vanish, to melt into the floor tiles and escape the sharpness of those words. The grocery line, once ordinary, now felt like a stage. Every cough, every shuffle of shoes, every glance made her more aware of how exposed she felt. Her mind raced. Should she say something, defend herself, tell them they had no right? Or should she stay silent, pay, and leave with what little dignity she could salvage? Both choices carried a cost. Speaking up meant risking a scene, more stares, more judgment. Staying quiet meant swallowing the insult, pretending it didn't matter, even though it cut deeper than she wanted to admit. In that frozen moment, she questioned herself. Was she really out of place? Was she somehow to blame for drawing this attention, for not dressing the way they thought she should? Shame has a cruel way of turning inward, and Claire felt its weight press down on her. All she wanted was to buy food for her daughter, nothing more, nothing less. Yet here she stood, trapped between the sting of humiliation and the fear of making things worse. Claire stood frozen, her eyes lowered, waiting for the moment to pass. The cashier kept scanning, shifting items with a smirk, but the silence in the line was growing louder. Then, from a few lanes down, the store manager noticed the tension and walked over. His voice cut through the awkward quiet as he greeted her warmly. "Claire, I didn't expect to see you tonight." The tone was different, familiar, respectful. The cashier paused, confused, glancing between them. The manager looked at the basket, then back at her. "Still making time for everyone else, even after your shift at the pantry," he said, loud enough for those nearby to hear. A murmur moved through the line. Customers exchanged looks. "Pantry? What pantry?" The cashier's smile slipped, replaced by unease. The manager turned to his employee, his words steady. "Do you know who this is? She spends her Saturdays here in town, feeding families who don't have enough. Dozens of kids eat because of the work she does." The cashier's face flushed, his eyes dropping to the counter. The weight in the air shifted. Those standing nearby now saw her differently. Not just a woman in a cardigan and old jeans, but someone whose quiet service had touched lives they hadn't even realized. Claire said nothing. She didn't need to. Her story was spoken for her, laid bare by the man who knew her worth long before this moment. The cashier's face drained of confidence, his hands suddenly unsteady as he slid the items across the scanner. Words that once carried mockery now caught in his throat, leaving only silence. Claire kept her head lowered, still gripping the basket, unsure of what to say or whether to say anything at all. Then it happened. A man further down the line spoke first. "You're the one who helps at the pantry, aren't you?" His voice carried a note of recognition. Another customer, a woman clutching a bag of apples, nodded. "My sister told me about you. She said you stayed late one night to make sure her kids had food for the week." The attention in the line shifted again, not in judgment this time, but in quiet respect. Claire's eyes lifted slightly, meeting the gaze of strangers who now looked at her differently. For the first time in that long, heavy moment, she no longer felt invisible or small. The cashier swallowed hard and whispered an apology, his earlier smirk replaced with discomfort and regret. He could not take back what had been said, but his eyes revealed he wished he could. Claire gave no speech, no grand response, just a soft nod as she placed her groceries in the bag and prepared to leave. What unfolded in that aisle was not loud or dramatic, yet it carried weight. Recognition had replaced ridicule. Kindness had surfaced where cruelty had tried to take root. And in that shift, Claire found something she hadn't expected to feel that evening: vindication. Not through anger, not through argument, but through the quiet truth of who she already was. That evening at Carson's Market proved a simple truth: what we wear does not tell the world who we are. A cardigan, a pair of old jeans, or tired shoes reveal nothing about the heart that carries them. Respect is never earned through appearance but through the choices we make when no one is watching. And sometimes, it takes only a moment of judgment to remind us how easily we forget the value of kindness. Claire walked out of the store with her groceries tucked under her arm, her steps steady, her head held a little higher than when she came in. The people who had watched in silence now carried something with them too. A reminder of how quickly we judge and how wrong we often are. Stories like hers happen quietly, every day, in places we least expect. And they ask us a simple question: will we choose to add to someone's burden, or lighten it? If you believe kindness is stronger than ridicule, share this story. And if you want more moments that reveal the hidden strength in everyday people, join us here in the Empathy Room.